Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Lauren Douglas. I'm the SVP of Marketing at Channel Factory, and I'm here at South by Southwest joined by John Starkweather, who is the AVP of Advertising at AT&T. So John, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate having you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm super excited to be here in person. We're at South by Southwest, and
it's great to be back in person.
It's great to be back in person, yeah. Have you seen anything or been excited by anything that you've seen here so far? Any innovations that you've, or even like events or experiences that you've seen that were cool?
I think that the number one theme in every conversation I've had here is we're together, right? We're doing this. There aren't as many people as there have been way back in the heyday, but there
is it true? It's smaller?
Yeah, but there are still, the venues have plenty of people. Yeah. The Brand Innovators event, honestly, has been the most packed, both at the venue, dinners, other things. So the marketing community is like extra excited to be here.
Cool.
So I mean, that's been absolutely universal. It's like, okay, no masks, like, is this safe? Like, are we okay?
Yeah.
We kind of looks at each other and like, all right, this is, we're going to give this a run.
Yeah, there's something about humans bouncing off each other, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So
it's a thing we've lacked, right?
Totally, absolutely. Cool.
But I think beyond that, a few things that I've seen have really been some panel discussions around diversity of content, like representing different groups, different types of creators. Versus a lot of mainstream traditional content.
Yeah.
I spent some time up at the Warner Media House. That's a big focus for them.
Yeah.
Really a diversity of programming and really encouraging and supporting just a new breed, new genres, and just really trying. I'm not sure anyone's figured out the exact formula about how you really make all of that break through, but everybody's taking a swing at it, and that's really encouraging to see. And it's not just them. TikTok is talking through some of that.
Yeah.
The CNNs, the Twitters, the others. It's all there, and it feels more genuine than just like, okay, on our agenda we need to have
tick the box.
Tick the box.
Yeah.
Like it is, you're just hearing it.
Yeah,
hearing
I
everywhere.
feel the same way. I mean, I think that like there's a real neat hunger for people to want to tell the stories and to tell lots of different types of stories. So I think that I've heard a lot of that too, which is exciting.
Yeah.
So you're the VP of
advertising at AT&T.
At AT&T, and you're like, when you think about content, because obviously AT&T owns a lot of content. Is that something that you're thinking about as a part of your advertising strategy as well, or are you more on the sort of devices and phone side of the business?
So I don't really see it much of a split as an advertiser or a marketer.
Yeah.
I guess if I put on my pure play advertising hat, if that's a thing, I might be looking at channels, other companies, media companies, social platforms that have some, amount of scale and some type of targeting, and then I might create something that we think is kind of beautiful or interesting, and put it in front of your eyes.
Yeah.
But we don't tend to look at it purely that way.
Okay.
You need to have a really relevant content, and that might be very entertaining. It might be embedding some product into programming. Okay. Or it might be putting something with somebody who has a pretty significant reach, like an influencer.
Yeah.
I hate that term, but we should talk about that.
Yeah.
But, lots of different ways of doing it.
Yeah.
And then frankly with content, some of the best marketing and advertising is really focusing first on content.
Yeah.
Really looking at the types of questions that people are asking, and like it's this crazy rocket science, like answering the questions that people are asking.
Okay.
Right?
Tell me a little bit what you mean by that.
So it's so simple, and so many brands just completely forget to do this. But it literally every day, every minute, 24/7. Somebody is typing or speaking into some search engine a term. Yeah. And they're looking for an answer. And it's not, always just, what's the best price on my latest phone? They certainly ask that. Yeah. But what happens before for that.
Right.
That gets really interesting. And then with more complex purchases.
Yeah.
So it might be, for some things that we purchase a lot, or if we have a particular brand that we're loyal to, we've purchased from, you may understand it and be enough. But if you were to buy a car, if you were to buy technology for your business, if you were to buy new camera equipment, you're going to research that quite a bit more.
Yeah, totally.
And so I think the best advertising, marketing, whatever, is really looking at just answering people's questions.
Yeah.
If you ask me a question and I just kind of, nah, and then I go on to my little sales pitch, and it's kind of like, what?
Totally.
Who is this person?
Sure.
And I think if we look at things in a more human way, that this industry gets really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And people feel good when I answer your question with something useful.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Just to go back to what you said a second ago, when you say you hate the word influencer, what do you mean by that?
I hate the word influencer because everybody influences somebody.
Sure.
And the way that if this is a thing that the influencer industry is taking off, is we're using some of the same models I see, and particularly in advertising, where we identify somebody and we're like, okay, you reach a certain number of people that you have followers on whatever platform, you're doing content that's kind of interesting for us. I'm going to give you my product, I'm going to give you a little bit of money, and I expect something in return. It's sort of just a push through.
Yeah.
And look, like a lot of people who are doing the influencer thing, like that free product or that little bit of money, like supports your small business, which is good.
Yeah.
But I think that really misses the opportunity that we have as a community of just people in the world, of really listening to each other. Back to that human connection. So if I give you a product and I want you to promote it to your folks, would it feel better if I said, hey, I've got something, what do you think about it?
Right. Yeah.
Is it something that you really like?
Yeah.
And maybe it is, and maybe the relationship is still fiduciary and a few bucks where you go place it out. And maybe that's fine. And there are some that are like, I'm only going to talk about things that I really love.
Yeah.
But that seems like a little bit of a game where you're only talking about things you love. What about all the stuff that's on the market that you don't like? Right. The better model for influencer engagement, for influencer marketing is really two ways. I'd love to give you a product that you can share with your fans, followers, community, and friends, that really has meaning to you, that's useful to you, but no product is perfect. Right. So what can I learn from you? What can I learn from your fans and followers, such that I go back and improve the product, the service, my offering, and then come back again and really create this relationship, versus there's quite a few companies out there that'll say, hey, I've got the best network and I'll sell you different influencers, and totally. Here you go. It's
additional distribution is sort of how they're looking at it.
And it just feels dirty. And it's not taking advantage of this amazing opportunity to have that feedback loop.
Totally. And I think that's a great point, because I think it feels a little dirty to the people watching it too. If you ever see hashtag ad stuff that you're just like, well, that's out of nowhere, it doesn't feel authentic to that audience either. So what have you spent your money on?
That's right. And I'm okay with, like, there's tons of content that I'm sure you watch, I watch, they'll say ad supported, but I want them to be still like really honest with me. Like, I have quit following people who like really have this division between the two. Yeah. And money has to work here. Like that's part of the model. But I can respect those who will say no to things, and then accept things that they work on, but still give honest feedback. Yeah. I want that. Totally. Like the world needs that. Yeah. Yeah. As an advertiser, I mean, how do you think about, we're talking about creators and influencers and obviously, marketing and advertising, how do you think about supporting the right creators or selecting the right creators or making sure you're working with a diverse slate of creators? Like, how do you think about those things as you plan advertising campaigns? think we're in a place where I can speak to a little bit about how we do it as a company, and it's very, very intentionally.
Yeah.
And I wish it weren't necessary to do this, but literally counting, everybody who's on the camera and behind the camera, and setting really hard mandates on diversity.
Yeah.
So we have hard mandates on diversity with every agency that we work with. We work really closely. We have a whole supplier diversity organization that is vetting and working with sometimes smaller business, sometimes larger businesses that are more diverse than what we may find on some of the Madison Avenue kinds of traditional firms.
Absolutely.
And it has been amazing to see the difference. I've seen it in my career, change. And because we're doing that, I am really critical personally of the things that I see. And when it looks awkward and just feels wrong when I see programming or I see a crew somewhere, and why does that not better reflect the world around us? So it's mandates.
Yeah, it's mandates, but it's also at this point it's sort of becoming part of your ethos and part of the company culture as well.
Absolutely, and so we're trying to do it obviously from a gender perspective. We've been huge supporters and involved in the See Her initiative and organization. Our former CMO led that organization, and we just said, look, we are going to have the right representation, but it's not just gender, it's not just ethnicity, but it's also breaking stereotypes.
Yeah.
Done a lot of business type advertising, and we've seen scripts and proposals come over from agencies and creatives, and it's the dude that's sitting there running the office, and it just sort of happens naturally. And it's like, no, like that's not what we're doing at all. Like we are breaking every single one of these, and it's become fun even to challenge ourselves of like, how do we bring in more people with disabilities and do things entirely different? Well, if we had the owner of the small business in a wheelchair, it changes all the framing. We're like, let's go and try that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Intentionally taking responsibility to make change.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
To be the right kind of difference in our country, in our world, and for our customers and for us.
Cool. That's awesome. I know you were previously VP of marketing. Now you're on the advertising side. How do you, what's the difference in sort of those two perspectives, and how do those two organizations work together?
Not all that different.
Yeah.
There are some specific role, ownership responsibilities in, something that's quote unquote marketing, or I've had product titles. I've had PR titles, advertising titles, content titles.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you're trying to create something. If I'm, back in the days when I was a group product manager, I worked at Microsoft and have been in other places. And while my day job may have had certain communications responsibilities to it and product responsibilities, you're working across that whole chain of people.
Yeah.
I've been in a lot of roles where I used to work with the person in my seat and
yeah, totally.
And back and forth. I remember having a PR job and lobbying. I was young in my career, and lobbying for a software change. There was 4 buttons in our phone software, and before there were no touchscreens. And there was 4 buttons, and through my team and a couple of people today you would call influencers, we changed the action of one of those buttons.
Nice.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
Right, huge. And I was in a PR job.
Right.
But I was working with people outside, and I had a bunch of research, and I partnered with our design teams, and how would this impact things? And we just all sat at the same table, and lots of smart people who were just committed to making amazing things. And it was the most fun I ever had.
Yeah, that's awesome. It sounds like you're very good at working cross-functionally to say well, we're all trying to do this thing. So how do we work together to do this thing better, or connect with customers better, or reach the customer better? But at the end of the day, it's, as you said, it's all it's all part of that conversation with customers. And I think what's interesting, one of the things you brought up a couple of times is that feedback with customers. So it seems like that's a theme that's gone through your career that's been something that you've been committed to.
Yeah, I do. I've really, I'm proud of kind of being the rule breaker who's like, let's just all sit and work together.
Totally.
It's like anything, it's breaking the silos for sure. It bites you in the corporate world too, and how I've avoided that becoming threatening to others is exactly what you said. It's the voice of the customer.
Yeah.
If I can bring a real honest customer insight, whether that's, admittedly one or two people, and say, hey, I've got a focus group of 2. It's not really great, but I want to go explore that. And then go do a larger focus group, or worked with teams of ethnographers over the years who are really sort of shadowing and looking at people's lives and how they use things and where are the friction points. And it's just fascinating to really build and create things for real people.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, like, I don't know what my title is, or I know what my title is. I know what my team does, but ultimately we're all like pointed down that same direction.
Yeah, totally.
And it keeps life interesting.
Yeah, it's good to go back to that question and like keep that as your North Star. Like, well, what does the customer want? And like how, like, even more broad than that, how are we actually helping human beings do something better in their life? And like, if you keep that North Star, it seems like it's a good path to go down.
This is right.
Yeah.
That's a bit that you can look at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day or at the end of a career and like, what did I do? Did I push cell phones on people and get more people to use social media and feel self-conscious about themselves? Like, oh my gosh, like how bad is that? Or did I really try and make technology work for people?
Yeah.
And be respectful of that as I learned along the way.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, wow, that was a bad idea, but it was the best that we knew at the time, and we've evolved and try and keep getting better.
In your LinkedIn, you describe yourself as a human-to-human marketer, and I think that I was going to ask you about that, but I don't think I need to because you just told me exactly what that means to you, which I think is really cool.
Thanks.
The other thing that you said in your LinkedIn profile is that management and sort of leadership are really important to you. So I just wanted to understand, how do you think about leadership? How do you think about coaching, building teams, and sort of helping your teams to grow?
Yeah, I have been fortunate to have a few people in my life who have really been there to help give me tips and advice. Oftentimes, them pushing, advice to me because I wasn't smart enough to ask the questions, but and some of that's my upbringing. Like, I don't come from a long line of people who have been in corporate jobs. Like, I'm first in my family to go to college and graduate, and second generation immigrant family, and all of my relatives have run small businesses, and some successful, some fail. So anyway, I've got that, and I realized that the few people who have been there for me have made a tremendous impact.
Yeah.
And so when I look at my teams, I feel a sense of responsibility to help them learn what some of the things that I've learned and do better than I've done. And so it's with my teams, and I spend a lot of time in volunteer capacities with teens, and done a lot through scouting, both girls and boys, and it's a big source of joy and fulfillment.
Yeah, and I can imagine it's probably similar. You're coaching people, whether that's in the workforce or whether that's teens that you're hiking with in the mountains, right? There's similar principles of lifting people up, coaching them. How do you get the best work out of them, and how do you tailor your messaging and the way you communicate to them so that they succeed? So cool.
And I learn a lot through the process.
Yeah.
So I'm actively mentoring now about 7 people or so. Sometimes it's a dozen, sometimes a little bit less, and it is a specific time commitment that I'm putting to it. But I learn a bunch.
Yeah.
And so I don't do it because I don't do it for that reason, but it is this mutually beneficial. And so one of the things I commonly will ask people of any seniority is who are you mentoring?
Yeah.
In fact, like, who are you mentoring? Who are you lifting up? And be very intentional.
Right.
Identify somebody and bring them along.
Totally.
Super important.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. One piece of advice that you've gotten from somebody that you were like, oh God, duh, that you would pass along to your teams?
Oh, great question. So, and I'm pretty transparent about things. I think the hardest advice and direction I've gotten has been from my teenage daughter.
Okay.
It's my wife and my daughter and I at home, and I feel sometimes like I have two wives, and yeah, you could kind of laugh about that, but it has forced me to really pause and rethink and kind of tweak the way that I approach things. So I guess my most important advice, or the hardest or most significant advice, is really to check how you think you're communicating and make sure it's what somebody's understanding. And I'm really experiencing at home, and I hope my teenage daughter loves me when she's an adult. But and we're good. But it's been that's been really significant.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, John. I really appreciate your time. This was an awesome interview and conversation.
Yeah.